Hey guys, RALPHINATOR here, and today we're going to be talking about Avengers Infinity War. So just to start off, I love this movie. I've been waiting for this movie for so long. Ever since the first Avengers, when we saw that first glimpse of Thanos, I thought that was so exciting, especially for someone like me. I'm a huge Marvel Comics fan. And I am actually familiar with the Infinity Saga from the original Marvel Comics, so I know that was huge in the 90s, and I remember that. I remember the video game Marvel Superheroes was heavily based on the Infinity Gauntlet and Infinity War saga, and I remember playing that game a lot, and I love that game. That game actually, it was really that game that got me into Marvel, the Marvel vs. Capcom series, actually. Basically, spoilers, okay. One thing that I did find interesting about this movie was the question of, in a movie that's so crowded with protagonists, right, and so many characters, whose movie is this, right? I mean, and if I had to name one person to be the protagonist, I guess it would have to be Tony Stark. I mean, out of all the superheroes, I would say that, he's the hero that I would say probably, gets really up close and personal with Thanos. One could also argue that this is really Thanos' movie as well. I mean, in some ways, it's almost like Thanos, in a way, is a protagonist as well. Thanos is kind of victorious in the end. I mean, for now at least. I mean, we'll see what happens in part 2 next year. But yeah, I mean, it seems like Thanos sort of wins in the end, right? And then Tony Stark is sort of left just bewildered and hopeless at the end. He stabs Tony in the heart. I mean, like, I really thought Tony was gonna die. I mean, to be honest, I mean, all the rumors and the speculation leading up to this movie led us to believe that, okay, either Captain America or Iron Man or both were going to die in this movie. I have to applaud Marvel for that. That was a really good red herring that they kind of hatched. I thought that was really good, and that really, I did not expect the ending of this movie. I mean, I think, one of the great stories about Thanos comes from the second Guardians movie, where Gamora and Nebula actually talk about, this cruel thing that he used to make them do, where he used to make them fight each other, and whoever lost would get a piece of their bodies replaced with cybernetic machinery. And Gamora, I guess, was just a better fighter, so she always won. That left Nebula basically sort of a cyborg, basically, like, so almost, half of her body is basically machine. It just goes to show you how twisted and evil he is, right? Let alone, I mean, obviously his whole plan, quote unquote, saving the universe, right, is genocide, basically. So this idea that whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? So I guess in his mind, he was making his daughters stronger, right? He was making his daughters more resilient. But of course, that's, in his mind, that's how he's justifying it. But clearly, I mean, there's no, clearly what he's doing is just torture, and he's basically just the sort of, he's a sociopath at the end of the day. He has this just sort of weird, twisted morality where, that justifies his own cruelty and his lack of compassion, and his sadism. He has 2 daughters, right? And one of them he clearly favored over the other. It's interesting, the one that he favors, which I would say is Gamora, he sacrifices her for this greater good. But again, it's still sort of a 50-50 kind of deal, right? Like, it's the same thing with the universe. What he wants to do with the universe, he wants to, destroy half of all life in the universe, right? So that the other half can, I guess, live or prosper or something, whatever. That's kind of the same dynamic with his daughters, right? One daughter, he basically lets her deteriorate. There's clearly a parallel between his sister, the sisters, right? There's clearly a parallel between the sisters, and how they were treated by their father, and how Thanos now wants to save, quote unquote, save the universe by, killing half of it, right? One real life, dictator or despot that really makes me think of Thanos is actually like, Mao or Stalin, actually. They committed, brutal genocide, but, I think at the end of the day, they justified it by saying, hey, this is for the greater good. We have to do this, or else our country is not going to advance or industrialize or prosper. Josh Brolin really plays it well, and Josh Brolin is a really good actor, and this is a great role for him. The whole battle with Thanos on Titan, I love that. I thought, for me, the Wakanda, so there were basically two set pieces. There was the battle on in Wakanda, and then there was the fight on Titan, Thanos' homeworld. And I definitely felt like the Titan fight was a lot more interesting and engaging, because it was like, and they almost had him, like, oh my god, they were about to take away his Infinity Gauntlet, and then Star-Lord couldn't stop himself from like not overreacting, but like, just if he could have waited until they got the Infinity Gauntlet off of him, they were about to do that. And I guess Doctor Strange probably knew it was going to happen all along, because we know that Doctor Strange kind of knows what's up. But oh man, it was such a it's like, secretly I wanted them to win. I wanted them to take off his Infinity Gauntlet, and he didn't, he didn't let them. Mantis, I love Mantis so much. Mantis is such an awesome character from Guardians of the Galaxy. She played such an integral part as well. I was surprised, even a character like Mantis. Mantis is kind of like, she's more of a side character or a sidekick, and she plays like, a really important part. She's keeping Thanos asleep, right? I liked Banner being in the Hulkbuster. I thought that was cool, and I didn't expect that, but that was really funny. The Hulk in the Hulkbuster, that's really funny. But yeah, the fight sequence on Titan was pretty awesome. I love the dynamic too. There was more of a dynamic there happening. I love that, that interplay between all of them, between Doctor Strange and Tony Stark and Spider-Man, and then Star-Lord. So many quips in that scene, or in those scenes. Doctor Strange tells Iron Man, hey, I don't work for you, right? That's pretty awesome. I love the scene where Winter Soldier picks up Rocket Raccoon, right? Because he's too short, so he picks him up to, like, shoot Thanos' minions. I thought that was pretty fun. Groot, forming Thor's new hammer, forming the handle for Thor's new hammer, Stormbreaker. I thought that was, even Groot, teenage Groot found a way to be, to be consequential in the movie. That was pretty awesome. I've always felt Doctor Strange is kind of an underrated Marvel superhero, and I loved it when his first movie came out. And I loved his guest appearance in the Spider-Man cartoon from the 90s. So I thought that Doctor Strange, really held his own in this movie. He really brought it to Thanos, and especially, the fight scene, particularly between him and Thanos on Titan, was pretty cool. Doctor Strange does some really cool, trippy stuff, that looks really cool. So I don't know. I think the only thing I didn't like about this movie was just the cliffhanger. I'm just waiting for next year, for the next one to come out. So yeah, but overall, definitely, if you haven't seen this, definitely go see it. You shouldn't be watching this because this review does have spoilers. So, highly recommend, don't watch the movie first, then come back. This is a movie about a huge, giant conflict, right? And I would argue that this movie doesn't really work as a standalone movie. This movie is really part of a series. So, this movie itself doesn't have a lot of character development, but the character development the foundation and the character development has already been laid out in the other movies You know, so that's what the other movies, you know, are for, right? So you have to watch the other movies, you know, to get into this one. So this movie, this is really an extended action sequence, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. A lot of people, you know, a lot of culturally elitist people might sort of look down on that. I mean, this is part of a cinematic universe, you know, this is part of a cinematic series, right? I mean, you know, this is well and truly a cinematic series, right? I mean, usually we're used to series on TV. You know, I would just wonder where the criticism would come from that, oh, this movie doesn't have a lot of character development or this and that. And I'm like, well, it's not. I feel like, you know, people who say that kind of are missing the point. You know, this is well and truly a cinematic series, right? This is really not that different from a TV series. The only thing is that this is, you know, these are big budget movies that are serialized, right? But what do you guys think? Did you guys like the movie? What were your favorite aspects about the movie? Let me know down in the comments, and subscribe and like this video, and I will see you next time. Peace out.